Hi, friends. I'm Katie.
And I'm Lauren, and welcome to Okay, But Did You Know? A podcast where we talk about the TV and media that we love with a friend who's never seen it before.
Today, we're recapping and chatting about Bob's Burgers, Season 5, Episode 13, Gayle Tales, and Episode 14, Lil Hard Dad. We always start off with a synopsis, and so here is Gayle Tales. The kids are grounded, and Gayle shows up to the restaurant crying. She was supposed to go to Yarnaville with her date, and the kids all offer to go with her to escape their grounding. They end up competing to go and write essays about Gayle. Whoever writes the best one gets to go with Gayle. Jean's story is about a singing duo. Tina's is a romance period piece, and Louise's is a high fantasy called Gale of Thrones. Linda is the villain in all three stories. Stacy, Gayle's date, shows up in the end, and they head out to Yarnaville. We find out that the kids scared Linda at the grocery store and embarrassed her, leading to the grounding. The family leaves Bob alone in the restaurant once again.
Yep.
They're always leaving him in the end.
Yeah, they are.
Always.
Mhm.
But we always start with our puns. What did you get for the vacant storefront?
A ton in the oven, big and tall baby clothes.
Which I just find funny because I had like a 9-pound baby. But they're still tiny.
Yeah.
They're still tiny. And then we have the pest control van.
Ants not in your pants, pest control.
Which, okay. That makes sense, I guess.
In theory.
And burger of the day.
We had a single burger of the day because, this all happened in the course of like an hour.
Yeah.
It was the curd, yeah, I can read. Curd-ficked stranger's burger comes with cheese curds. In my defense, that's hard to say.
Yeah. But I love cheese curds. They're so yummy.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few fun facts for you, and then we get to talk about this lovely episode,
Mm-hmm.
which I've been very excited for you to watch this one for quite some time because I know you like the anthology episodes and you like Gayle.
Yeah.
You put the two together.
Honestly, based off of my commentary, I don't think my score is going to be all that hard to figure out.
No, not at all. But the script cover is actually a parody of The Neverending Story, and it has Gayle riding a giant Mr. Business, her cat. And it also has Jean on his side, and he wears a cowboy outfit.
Mm-hmm.
Louise is on her side and dons a Game of Thrones-like outfit, and then Tina is in her maid's dress on the script cover. I'll just send you a picture of it later.
Gotcha.
And we do notice that in, each story, Mom is not exactly the nicest person. She's the villain, essentially, in each one.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love the way that the wiki worded what Bob was in each one. He was the bumbling sidekick.
Yeah, that's...
in each of the stories.
Yeah, because, he's... in the first one, he's the drunk. In the second one, he's just kind of there. And in the last one, he's Hodor.
Yeah. Which was... Bob Dor.
Bob Dor.
I love Bob Dor so much.
Bob Dor.
Which we'll get to those lines later. But when I first ever watched this, and every time I've watched it, I've always thought, okay, they're doing the thing of like Pride and Prejudice type thing. I was wrong.
Yeah, later, Lady Chatterteeth's lover is, I'm assuming, based off of Lady Chatterley's lover, which is also hard to say.
It is, and that is a book published in the late 1920s, and that was a relationship between a middle-class man and upper-class woman. Mm-hmm. It apparently is famous for its graphic sexual imagery for the time.
Yes, it is.
I was not aware of this. I didn't know this existed.
Mm-hmm.
I should have known that you would know it existed.
I've never actually read it, but yes, I do know. Like, I'm aware of it as it's pertinent to romance literature history.
I'm curious as to how just graphic it is.
Based
knowing
off of
what we read today.
Compared to what we read today, I don't know if it's... I don't know, honestly. Like I said, I've never read it.
I'd be curious.
But based on the times, it doesn't take a whole lot for it to be unprecedentedly spicy.
Very true.
So, there's that.
And my last little tidbit is that in Tina's story, the band that's playing at the ball, Boyz for the Present Tyme, and I love that Time is spelled Tyme.
Yeah.
That was, of course, a reference to the Boys for Now band, but it's the same people. Like Little Boo, like Boo Boo, and all of them are still actually playing the instruments.
Yeah, I caught that,
and it's so freaking funny. But I always like to start you off usually with my verse note or my first line that I wrote down. Of course, this one is when Bob goes, "Why don't we have a panic room?"
Yeah,
so what'd you think?
I wrote down. I'm like, yeah, panic room for in-laws is probably a good idea.
Oh God, can we sell that?
That would make a lot of money. I wrote down, Yarnaville sounds awful. Please continue.
But what do you feel about Cat Chat, a dating site for people with cats?
I mean, there's a dating site for everything. Like anything that's weirdly specific, there's a dating site for that.
I mean, there's ones for farmers. There's
Farmers.
christianmingle.com.
There's JDate for Jewish people.
That's an interesting one.
That's one that exists. Yeah, like if you can think about something specific, there is a dating site for that. So like a dating site for cat lovers, it's not the weirdest thing that I ever would have experienced, but honestly, I was fully expecting Stacy to be a woman in disguise.
That would have been a twist.
Because like I feel like like a dating service for cat lovers, I feel like lends itself to the lesbian community
just a little bit,
tiny bit.
Because you've got like your lesbians who have specifically dogs, and then lesbians that have cats. My in-laws, they really love Dachshunds.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a joke there. I've made the joke before. Lesbians who love wiener dogs is definitely a very funny thing.
It definitely is. I am very much of the cat variety.
As you have a Lego cat.
I do have a Lego cat. It is on the Instagram. Feel free to go look at it.
So out of the three, which one was your favorite?
This one broke I felt like it kind of broke the mold a little bit for what I usually expect out of these types of anthologies, because like I always say, the middle one is almost always the worst one. So far,
the first one.
I'm saying the theme here of the 2 anthology episodes we've seen so far is Jean's story ends up being my least favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard. It was hard to pick between Tina and Louise's, but I did eventually. Gale of Thrones was my favorite, because that one. Maybe it's because like I'm currently watching House of the Dragon also, so a lot of it's fresh in my mind. But like that one was the most creative. But I did love Bob's line at the end of like, Louise, you've never seen Game of Thrones, right?
No.
Because like a 9-year-old really shouldn't see. She's like, nope, definitely. No, I think I wrote it down. Yeah, she's like, Louise, you haven't watched Game of Thrones, right? Me? What? Game of what? No.
Which is so funny because I'm 30 and I'm like, I don't think I should watch that. Like, I have my reasons, but I'm like, sometimes I get that weird inkling of like, maybe I should give it a try. Maybe I'm wrong and I need to just shut up and give it a try and watch me end up love it. Because I do love stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then I remind myself who it's written by and I go, maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even give like a situation where like maybe if this happens you should watch it. Like
yeah, he hasn't even finished the series.
He hasn't, and at this point my guess is the books aren't going to get finished until after he's passed. At this point, like my guess is he's holding on to them so hard that like someone like he's going to bequeath the unfinished manuscripts to somebody and someone else is going to finish it posthumously. That's what's going to end up happening at this point.
Yeah.
But like I watched the original series I think in college, I want to say, and I then continued on until the series ended. And like I have my feelings about the final season, as do many people, not rooted in knowing anything about the book, so I don't really know. I own the first book. I bought it secondhand. But
God, if that's ever like voted on and put up for our book club,
I think we have to have a limit on that one because people have to be able to read that. And I mean, to be fair, we give people 3 months for the book club, but like those books are like 1,000 book. Those books are like 1,000 pages.
I mean, I do that all the time, but yeah, you don't.
It's the audiobook is the audiobook alone. I mean, at normal speed is 33 hours.
Wow, that's actually To Sleep in a Sea of Stars is 34. That's impressive. Wow. Yeah, I read that physically read that book in the span of less than a week.
Wow,
I'm proud of that. Some of the best lines though I feel like did come from Tina's story though.
Yeah, I have my petticoats are unspeakable.
Your ankles are great.
Her shins go on for inches.
Oh wait, she's on fire. Let's move her. Like, it was just so good.
It was really there. That one was, I think that, I mean, for like one-liners, that one might have been the best. Because like I was like, we love a historical romance moment, and like, but I said we love a historical romance, but Tina is writing about her aunt, so
a little weird.
Weird. Teddy is no one's ideal suitor.
I love that he's like, what's this? A cup? What's around me? A house? What? Like,
no. But then I mean, I know we found out later that her true love in this universe was still Scott Bakula. But I was like, it's always Scott Bakula. But I was like, why is the love interest for Gayle in this one Bob?
That was really awkward. But then like Linda looked so good.
Honestly, the Regency era clothing was really good on her.
I loved how they did that. Mm-hmm. The only one thing I didn't like about the third one, I was like, we could do without the breast. Like, is that a thing from Game of Thrones I don't know about?
No, it's not.
I was like, the breastfeeding is a little far.
It's a little far, but my guess is that was the take on like how Game of Thrones for a lot of the show, there is stuff that is just needlessly graphic.
See, and
I
this is why I haven't watched it,
I
because
think
it's
that was
needlessly
why
graphic.
that's the thing is I think that was probably what the writers were going for. Like, let's take something that is needless, let's
Okay.
make something needlessly graphic, and that's I think the most show friendly they could do would be my guess.
Yeah, because at this point they've kind of started going a little bit more family friendly, so they can't
Yeah,
do too much. But the cat dragons are interesting.
I liked the cat dragons. Did the
They're
cat
in,
did they
yeah,
have 4 legs and wings? I wasn't paying attention.
they did.
Okay.
They had 4 legs and wings. It looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would not make sense if the cat dragons didn't, because they're cat dragons.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get rid of like their front paws. That'd be kind of weird.
Those are their hands.
But the best line out of the whole episode, Bob Dwyer third wheel. Bye bye. I love Bob Dwyer.
Bob Dwyer. I wrote down white talkers. They will literally bore you into a death-like slumber.
I don't know. So that's based off the.
That's based off of the White Walkers, which are, I mean, they're basically they're zombies essentially.
Okay.
The White Walkers from Game of Thrones. I mean, spoilers if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, but at this point,
Oh,
we're so far beyond the statute of limitations on these spoilers.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, and I'm like, ooh, tell me.
Yeah, so basically, there's like the White Walkers, and like they're essentially zombies, but like the lead of them are truthfully these like unkillable beasts that were humans that were turned into the white the Night King. He was turned into basically this ice creature demon zombie thing as penance. And then his revenge was he turned everyone and anyone else in his vicinity to zombies. So that's kind of the whole point of Game of Thrones is that the series is called The Song of Ice and Fire. It's the White Walkers, which are the ice zombies, and the dragons, and how all that kind of, that's why it's called The Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, still not reading or watching this, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think I'm good. Which usually you would hear dragons and usually you'd think me.
Yeah, right?
But, well, George R.R. Martin and I do not agree on what a dragon makes. So
Exactly. This is one thing I will say for House of the Dragon, for the current reboot that's going, is that's mostly helmed by women. Which makes it a little different. And this is one thing. It's something that was brought up in the first season of House of the Dragon. Is there was a scene where a character was assaulted. I will not go in depth into it, but a character was assaulted somehow. If we were under the old leadership, we would have seen that happen. We probably would have. Under the leadership of House of the Dragon, what we saw was all we saw was the aftermath, which is just as important, but not as graphic to see.
That's why I can't watch the first one. I don't like scenes like that.
No, exactly. So like it was her coming to the queen afterwards, telling her what had happened.
Because I've watched that's
important to, yeah, and that's important to see in that level, and what happens with that kind of assault.
Yeah, it's very important.
The aftermath is just as important, more pertinent emotionally, less graphic. That's important, and that's like it.
And it's like it's still a storytelling device. You don't have to include the actual graphic scene.
You don't have to.
And like that's one thing that I've watched Vikings a lot of times, and in the earlier seasons that does happen. Like I think there's like 1 or 2 scenes where something you see things like that happen I didn't expect, but I saw it and now I've seen it, so like it's there. I have said I run we both run our book accounts as well, and if anybody follows us here, if you didn't know, mine's mostly, my niche is dragons. I love dragons. I make all kinds of dragons. I've been down to like doing Patreon stuff now.
You're the dragon queen.
Yeah, that's my name. But I cannot tell you the amount of times I'm told in comments and messages and everything, oh, you should read Game of Thrones because of the dragons. And I'm like, I have been informed by many friends and by reviews and other things that there are some very graphic scenes that I don't want to read or watch. Like, there is a big deal when it comes to a lot of white male authors who like to write these things into their books, and I think it's unneeded.
Yeah.
Because as you just said, there are other storytelling devices that make us, well, we don't have to be triggered to read it.
Exactly.
Like, which I know I'm still trying to get you to read Lessons in Chemistry, and that's graphic, but like, I'm sorry. I warned you. It's on the
back burner.
It's on the back burner. I did warn you. I didn't expect it, and I didn't look into it myself before reading it. It shocked me as well. Yeah. And I did audiobook on that one. but I toughed through it because I loved the story itself apart from that one scene.
Yeah.
And it is historical fiction, so sadly it is pertinent to history.
Yeah.
So, but any other we really went, that was a
we went
different
off on that
tangent than
one, but
usual.
yeah, but I'm still in the Gale of Thrones. I this was just me with like my Game of Thrones knowledge in the background. I said it's very George R. R. Martin-esque to have all the names sound nearly identical except for like one letter. Because like,
oh, is that that's a thing?
Louise, yeah, like Louise was like listing off a bunch of different people of like such and such of whatever. I'm like, wow, these all sound identical. Yep, that's accurate. It's just the names
be
are
more creative.
Nah, why do that?
So things can make sense.
Eh.
Eh.
He doesn't care. But my last thing, at least for Gale of Thrones, was Linda's character in that one was she was physically like this was my take on it. She was themed very much after Melisandre who's like she's a magic. She wasn't a queen, but she was called the Red Woman. She was like a priestess, magic person. But her main throne room was more themed off of the Vale because like the door the trap door that opened up with all the porcelain babies was meant to be like the Vale's moon door. Like they have like basically just like this giant trap door in the middle of the throne room that opens up into the basically just because the Vale is up like in mountains. So
okay.
the moon door opens and it's just thousands and thousands upon feet until you hit the ground. So like this is a lot of references all smushed together, but I was like, it just shows that like the writers are big Game of Thrones fans, but also I know what they're referencing, so it's like I'm also a nerd. It's fine.
Oh yeah, I'm like I could watch so much more of this style of Game of Thrones than I think I could do with Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah. So I really did not like Jean's story.
I didn't either.
Although I was saying, are all of the anthologies essay based?
No,
okay.
I don't think so.
But these first two are.
No, they're not. Not all of them are essay based.
Okay.
I think they finally realize when they go into other ones, they're like, oh wait, there's different ways to tell stories.
Gotcha. Although I do appreciate Jean's is almost always a musical.
Always. That's just Jean. I get where his inspiration comes from. It's Jean, like you kind of get it, but it's just not my favorite the way he does things.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny that he's doing like the chocolate or whatever, like that's what he's doing, but then at the end Linda is actually drinking whiskey. Or I'm sorry, Lindette,
yes. Well, this was the soda bar.
It was a soda bar, but she had whiskey at the end.
I mean, Bob was drunk also, so
yeah. Bob was a choice throughout all of them, honestly.
He was just kind of there.
Yeah. He kept doing dumb things. What did you rate this one?
This was a 30, unsurprisingly.
Yes, I was right.
This one was just fun for me from beginning to end, and I couldn't deny. Although to be fair, an all-night rhinestone warehouse sounds amazing. For how much I didn't like Jean. For how much I didn't like Jean's story, all-night rhinestone warehouse sounds
amazing. His story at least makes sense for him.
It does. No, it definitely does. But yeah, this one
not out of character.
No, but this was a 30, unsurprisingly, I think.
Unsurprisingly. I'm glad I was right. Because, I mean, ever since we started this season, I'm like, Gayle Tales. I can't wait for you to get to Gayle Tales. And we get to it, and I was right. I feel great right now. I didn't give it a 30.
Okay, that's fair.
So plot and personal are both 8, and character is 9. So I give it a 25.
Okay.
So not terrible.
That's still a decent score.
Yeah. And then we need to go into Season 5, Episode 14, Lil Hard Dad. I'm not a fan of this title. At all.
No, it's weird.
But Tina has a book report due the next day and hasn't even started reading the book. Who hasn't done that? Bob orders an RC helicopter and immediately crashes it. Gene struggles with his lack of heroics when Tina nearly gets hit with falling boots. The person Bob bought the helicopter from refuses to refund him, and Bob insists on getting his money back. Going so far, he visits the seller at his home. Gene tags along with Bob, and Linda and Louise help Tina with her book report. Bob ends up in an all-out battle with the seller along with employees of the hobby hole and learns a lesson on letting go from his son. Linda and Louise help Tina concoct an elaborate performance instead of actually reading the book. She goes with her mom's plan and ends up losing it during her oral report and still gets a good grade. This one was kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
But what did you get for the vacant storefront?
Baby got back problems, physical therapy.
as I've like been complaining about my back problems tonight. Such a great time. And the
Yep.
pest control van.
Killing fleas softly, in parentheses, with our spray.
A little
Pest
weird.
control. Yeah.
And burgers of the day.
Sweet chili of mine burger. Only
Play
one.
on the that's off the Guns N' Roses song, Sweet Child of Mine.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like that one. Like sweet chili with the right cheese, I think would be pretty good. So Dana Snyder played Sheldon. This is he does a lot of adult animation. Most would probably know him from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. And he did Paradise PD as well. I've told you before about Squidbillies, and I told you don't watch it because you could watch the first 5 minutes and that's the entirety of the show. He's also in that. So, and Paradise PD is one of those adult shows that you only watch if you're not gonna, like, if you can take the most crass humor humanly possible. If you get offended really easily, do not watch the shows created by those people whatsoever. I've seen enough of it to know that I'm just like, this is fucked up. That's the only way I can describe it. Like, don't watch those shows unless you want to be offended, honestly, because the stuff that happens in these shows and the things that they say are, I need to know what drugs they're on.
A lot.
A lot.
I don't know
it's gotta
what,
be a lot.
But it's going to be a high quantity.
Oh, yeah. This episode was dedicated to the memory of Gordon Kent. He worked on as an animation timer on the show. His final credit as an animation timer on the show was the episode The Haunting, but this one was in memory of him.
Gotcha.
So
nice.
I always like to, when that is in the wiki, I always like to make mention of it because they have always done really great about when they lose somebody. This is one of my favorite ones, though. The restaurant's address is revealed to be 5721 Ocean Avenue. So we now know their address. When the table read first took place for this in like May of 2014, it was the title was Helibopter Dad.
I like that better.
I do too. I don't like, cause like even when Gene says it, Bob's like, no, I don't like that. That's no.
Well, because also Lil Hard Dad, it's based on one line of the episode versus Helibopter Dad. I feel like has more to do thematically with the episode as a whole.
Yeah. But would you like to hear the movies that were playing at the movie theater?
Yes.
So we've got Duck Duck Dead, Garden Cop, Future Dads, and they make a note that Garden Cop is probably a spoof of Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah.
But yeah, what'd you think?
This is an episode where all of the parents are teaching the wrong message.
Oh yeah, they definitely did that.
Bob, I can say he started off in the right place of like, taking action. I mean, his thing of it's the principle of the thing. Sometimes it is. I say that a lot
myself.
As do I. It's the principle of the thing. But like, he started out in a good place, and then Gene was just like, "How about we get you a ladder because you're dangling off the roof."
Just let go. Like, don't let go of the roof, but like let go of these emotions.
Thing.
Be the bigger man.
And then, I mean, this is partially me being a reader, partially me being someone with a library science degree, and partially being a former educator. You can't never read the book.
Yeah, no.
Like, you gotta try somehow. It's not a great lesson is like read the back cover and base it off of that.
Oh yeah, I did really love Linda's line though, where she says you can't judge a book by its cover, but you can judge a book by its back cover. And I'm like, Linda, that's the blurb.
Yep, that's the blurb. And sometimes the back cover doesn't even have anything. If it's a hard copy, if it's a hardcover, you got to go into that flap at least.
And then there's a lot of books that don't even have sometimes that. They'll have like reviews, and this person says it's great, and they won't even have anything about what the book is about on it.
So
which I hate. Give me something.
Yeah, out of curiosity, because I wasn't sure if Call of the Wild was an appropriate book for someone of her age. Out of curiosity,
for 13.
I looked up the Lexile level of that book. Just like I went to like the academic. Would this be appropriate? Because Lexile is the reading level. How they decide.
I didn't know what Lexile was.
Yeah, Lexile is basically how they decide reading levels for certain books. So for anyone who's curious, if you're me, Call of the Wild has a Lexile level of 1120, which is perfectly within the range for a 7th grader.
Oh, cool. The range I just need to come to you and I figure things out for my kids.
Yeah, well, there's a Lexile. They have a website. But it was, I think the range for 7th grade, it was like 10 something to 12 something. So like 11, 20 is perfectly, because at first I saw 11, I was like, oh, this seems old, but no, that's not. 11 doesn't mean it's for 11th graders.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I know. So it still might be a bit much given how many remedial classes she's in.
Fair. She's
So it's
in
a little
remedial
on.
math.
Yes, she might be in. So I mean, she might not be in remedial reading, especially with her writing and all of that. But yeah,
no,
it
I
was
feel like
a
she'd
lot of
probably be
this.
good.
Yeah, a lot of this episode was people giving the wrong. Heliflopter was funny though.
Yeah.
I'll give him that. I said, fighting for the justice of your helicopter is not heroic.
But like, how did you end up paying $45 for shipping if you were able to drive to his place?
Yeah, that too. Like, there's no way that the shipping on that was that much.
No place would charge that much.
No, I mean, I know this is an animated, and I mean, you know better than I do, as your spouse is a postal worker.
Exactly.
So I just kept writing, half-assing the book report is not a good lesson to teach your daughters, over and again. And then when she was doing the song, I also wrote down Linda's line of, can you do it with more vibrato? I was like, no, do not force the 10-year-old to force the vibrato. That's not good for her voice. Because also she may not be able to do it. Because vibrato is like, for people that don't know, it's like, it's altering of like, it's when like the air moves through your vocal cords and like they vibrate to a point where you kind of hear like the sound wave bouncing is the best way. I'm not singing for the podcast, because especially the volume
not
that
that
I
you
need,
have before.
not that I have, but the volume that I need to get the vibrato out as an example, no one wants to listen to that.
No.
So not directly in their ears. Not if you want to hear me sing, join a singing live. I do those sometimes on my once account, but don't make the 10-year-old. And it was very on par though that she couldn't do it, because at that age you usually can't control your vibrato that well. Yeah. Nor is there a lot. It's a kind of thing.
Like, I barely can with mine.
It comes out with age, and like I basically almost always just let it be there, because it just feels better for my voice.
Mm-hmm.
I can control, especially on like ending notes of songs. Like I can kind of like stop it and like let it kind of gradually start to do its thing towards the end of the note. But like, don't make the 10-year-old add vibrato. It's not safe.
Yeah, I thought a funny line was, that's his good nipple. My good nipple is bleeding, and Bob's just like holding his nipples, and I was just, oh god, it was so funny.
My favorite things were eating lunch and wearing shorts, and you took it all away.
But then, like, that same guy who's got his arms around Bob, and Bob's like, no, this has been, like, by Bob King, you know.
Yeah, he's like, no, this is very helpful.
Very helpful. He enjoyed that moment. $300, though, for revenge, essentially.
Yeah.
After he spent how much just on the first one that crashed immediately? Like, Bob is
but Katie,
not...
It's the principle.
Fuck.
It's the principle of that he's going to prove his point by spending more money, although I did write down, it's the poking drone of doom.
But it's just so frustrating watching them spend money like this sometimes, knowing they barely make enough to survive. They're late on rent all the time. But yeah, go spend that $300. That's a real smart purchase. Turns out being a responsible adult is kind of boring, not gonna lie. So,
I mean, yeah.
This is what happens when you get old, kids. Don't recommend.
I was like, how is the 11-year-old in both of our shows the voice of reason?
How? Seriously?
Like, really?
Which is so funny, because like the last episode, Gene's like, okay, we weren't a fan of this. But then this one, we're like, thank you, Gene. You make sense. I love the whole like foreshadowing thing, though, of him recording Bob, and we just know that he's going to end up using, like, it's kind of obvious when they do stuff like that. But it is, I loved how it's like making a parent hear their own words and go, oh, fuck. My child's right. Like, you have to be like that as a parent sometimes. If your parent, if your child is actually telling you, like, these are your own words repeated back to you, you've kind of got to listen to your kid.
A little bit.
Like, it's okay to apologize to our kids. Just saying. As a parent who has to apologize to my kids all the time, because everyone's human. Children are just tiny humans. We are big humans. Well, other people are bigger humans. I'm a human, kind of. For anybody who doesn't know, I'm very short. I can't wait till we meet for the first time and you just get that little bit of a shock of like, oh, wow, you really are. Like, because it happened with our friend Jess. When she first met me, she literally stood there for a second like, oh, shit, you are short.
Is she about my height?
I don't know how tall you are.
5'5".
Yeah, I think she's about your height. I think so. Not me being like, Jess, how tall? I'm going to do that. It's not a Yahoogle, right?
Not, it doesn't really count as you. Although I did look up something real quick for my last
what'd you look up?
Well, because I wrote my last note is Tale of Two Cities is definitely too complicated for a 7th grader.
Oh yeah, I can barely comprehend that,
But
honestly.
weirdly enough, Lexile level wise, it's not too much more
Oh, so
than
I'm just dumb.
No, I think the Lexile is not an infallible system because the Lexile level for it is
Oh,
1130, which puts it about the middle to end of ninth grade level, which is technically 14, 15 of age.
okay.
I read it in 10th grade. I didn't understand it then. Although to be fair, I barely read it because that was the teacher that said he used it specifically to weed out who wasn't supposed to be in honors. So we all collectively just read the Spark Notes
Oh, I love that.
because we're like, this is stupid. Why would you tell us this?
Which is so funny because like around that age too is when I first started reading stuff like Pride and Prejudice, and I love Pride and Prejudice so
hmm
much. But we've had this discussion before about like when it comes to classic literature though, you really need the like the history of that time period, what it was
hmm
like writing in that time, how things were published in that time. Like you
Yep.
need all that information to truly understand what you're reading. And that's why I
hmm
fully think like I could probably, I'm 30. I think I could probably read A Tale of Two Cities now and understand more of it.
I have no
But
desire.
I don't exactly. I don't, that's exactly what I was about to say. I don't have the desire to. Do I have multiple copies of Pride and Prejudice? Yes. Have I read the other ones that I have apart from Sense and Sensibility? No. Like I have all of her collection. I have not
hmm
read the other books.
That's okay.
Still. I want to, but
You don't have to.
the mood you have to put yourself in to read classic literature. Like
Yeah, that's not a mood reader situation. That's a you have to decide to want to read that.
exactly. It's not something that you're just like, I feel like reading this. I can't do that
No.
because I really want to reread because it's been a long time. But I do actually want to reread Frankenstein, which that should
hmm
come to nobody's surprise that I want to
No.
reread that. But like things like Dracula. God, did you have to read Dracula in high school? Was that
No.
one? What did you have to read? Because realizing we read very different things.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. Ninth grade. So I was in honors English for 11th and 12th grade, and sorry, I was in honors English for 10th and 11th
Okay.
grade, and I was in AP for 12th. So that was basically college level.
Yeah.
Ninth grade, I was in regular, and that's just because, or I was in Regents level. That's just because I did badly on like that 8th grade test that they had
Yeah.
us take that decided where you were going to go, and because both I did that for both social studies and English. Both teachers were like, "Why are you here?" I was like, "Because I don't test well."
That
They're
was
like,
me
"Oh,
for
okay."
ninth grade in
They're like,
English.
"Oh,
They
okay."
put me in the wrong class,
They had
essentially.
no idea. We read so for Shakespeare. I know we read Romeo and Juliet
Yep.
in freshman year. We read Julius Caesar sophomore year.
Did that.
11th grade was specifically about American literature, so we didn't actually read any Shakespeare in 11th grade. 12th grade was
We
Othello.
did a lot of traditionalist, I think, in 11th.
11th grade. That's the one I remember the most because that's a teacher that I really liked. And this is what's funny about the thing of you can't the concept of you shouldn't just you can't never read the book.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we started with The Crucible. There was a
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee Williams unit, so we did Streetcar Named Desire and Cat on
Didn't
a
do
Hot
that
Tin
one.
Roof and no, sorry, Cat on Hot. We didn't do Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. That was my acting class. I did a scene from that for my acting class.
Yeah.
We did The Glass Menagerie. Sorry. We read Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. That
Oh,
was interesting. It was an interesting read. And we also watched the movie. We compared them.
I
Um,
haven't read it.
we read The Great Gatsby. We
Oh,
read
of course. Who hasn't done Gatsby, I believe,
yeah.
in high
That
school?
was a fun one. We did Grapes of Wrath at one point.
Yep.
I'm not remembering a whole lot else, but this was the joke for me with the you can't never read the
Mm-hmm.
book. In my yearbook, I believe my teacher wrote something along the lines of like, "I think you're the only one that actually read everything in class this year." Um, if she's Miss T, if you're ever hearing this, I doubt you are, but if you are, I didn't read Grapes of Wrath. I couldn't. It's too
I
much.
actually have Spark Notes books preparing for
Yeah.
homeschool to be prepared because we did freshman year was really dumb because
Mhm.
I had a lot of scheduling issues in my school because I did so many like things
Mhm.
and with like the ROTC stuff I was doing, I had to be in a certain period every year because
Mhm.
that was the only class period for what I was doing. And it changed every year for like different periods, but like that meant I
Mhm.
couldn't take the classes I really wanted to take in different situations.
Yeah.
And then as I got into my senior year, I was fine scheduling wise until I realized I was doing academic decathlon, and you
Uh.
have to be that one is two different semesters. The first semester is academic decathlon because the competition's at the end of the first semester,
Mhm.
and so the second semester it just switches over into AP economics.
Gotcha.
And so with that, I was like, well, I have to be in here. I mean, the binders we had for that, and we did all that. So I had to read different things for that. I had to study so much music. I had to study art.
Mm-hmm.
I was dumb. Like, I didn't have a senior project. They skipped
Mm-hmm.
my year doing any type of senior project. I think all the teachers just bonded together, like, we're not doing this year.
My school was too big for that.
Like, we didn't do it. And so I got out of that, which really pissed off my siblings, which was like a little bit of joy for me.
Yeah.
But I did do academic decathlon that year.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a whole, like, I mean, I was studying 6 days, sometimes all week,
Oh wow.
because we would have class all week and then we would meet at the library on Saturdays and study.
Hmm.
And then you also had to write a prepared speech and do an improvised speech as well as part of the competition. I got first place in that, by the way.
Nice. Very nice.
Which it tells you that, like, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do in life, just talk.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But we read, oh god, so freshman year was like, the Odyssey and stuff like that. We read,
Oh yeah, I did that freshman year.
Night.
So Night was one of those books it was 10th grade curriculum. The teachers could do that or Tale of Two Cities. My teacher chose Tale of Two Cities.
Yeah, we did that. We did Night in 9th grade. 10th grade was Julius Caesar. We did The Good Earth, which very good book. We actually really, like, my 10th grade class, we got really into reading that and discussing it. We enjoyed it. I don't remember what else we did then. 11th grade is kind of fuzzy. I don't think we read it. I don't remember what we read in 11th. I don't even remember who my teacher was in 11th grade. It was a weird year. But because of scheduling issues, I didn't get to do AP in my 12th grade year, but I did do British literature. So I had to do, which was really fun because I was really close to the teacher. So I did Dracula. We did, I think we like went over Frankenstein, but didn't read it like extensively. When we got to doing another book, he let us vote. Ironically, Pride and Prejudice won.
Huh.
I had already read the book so many times leading up to that year, and it had me so happy because he was like, the way he did it is we had enough people in the class that he was able to assign like so many chapters to each student to write about. Like, we read the book, but you only had a couple of chapters you actually had to like write an essay on. I wrote mine on the book.
That makes sense.
Because he's like, you will have too much to say on just do it
just
all.
Do the whole thing.
Just do whatever you want to do. You can't go over this amount of pages because I don't have the energy to read it. But he knew for a fact because he'd come in
good
class.
Teacher. That's a really good teacher.
He was amazing. I still talk to him to this day. He's a wonderful person. But it was just so funny when that happened. He's like, just do this. Because he'd come into class and be like, all right, who read their chapters? And he goes, Katie, I'm not talking to you. Because he knew I had already read that book so much. But then when we did Dracula, we ended up watching the Winona Ryder Dracula movie.
Oh.
It was an experience.
I can imagine.
I hated Dracula for that reason. I loved watching Winona Ryder.
One thing I can remember from 12th grade, because we did a bunch. I remember we read Picture Dorian Gray. That was the Heart of Darkness year, unfortunately. But one thing I remember.
Oh, I had to read Heart of Darkness for academic decathlon.
Well, but so for our Othello unit, for the way that we did the anime, because Shakespeare should be performed. Ultimately, just reading it, you're not going to get everything you want out of it. Yes. So what she did for Act 5, I think was the final act. She had we split up basically into Shakespearean theater troops, and we were each assigned a different scene from Act 5, and that we had to cast, stage, perform, costume, sound design, however we wanted to interpret it. And my one friend's group, they did it like Muppet style, where there was like one, I think it was whoever was Iago was the only human and everyone else was puppets. Which was genius. My group went a little more literal because we had 3 guys in our group and it was just a scene. It was the scene where he kills Desdemona. So it's just the 2 of them. Okay. So we had to basically just triple and double cast because there was 2. I think we had 3 guys and it was me and another girl. So we had them just constantly switching out who was playing Othello. They had the same robe and fake beard, which was hilarious. But we decided to do like the smothering scene to like "Oh Fortuna," like that song. And we're like, oh, it'd be really cool if we do it in slow motion. So you just see me looking very like afraid while he's coming at me very, very slowly with a pillow. And my teacher recorded these so we could watch them all back as a group. That way everyone could kind of see everybody's performances. And you can just, as he's doing this, you can see the camera shaking because she's trying not to laugh as like he's just like slowly coming at me with a pillow. It's like
At this point, this episode is dedicated to just amazing English
yes, it
teachers in our
is.
past.
So hopefully you listener had a wonderful English teacher for whom you can have these wonderful memories.
Because it really means a lot when you're a reader to have that teacher. Because I remember being in middle school and I started reading really, really young. I've told you before, I started reading at like 2. I would get bored in my social studies class, and my social studies teacher was actually going to school for his master's. He would pull out his like social, his like some of his history, but usually like English because he knew how much I read. Pull out English level.
High school
Wait,
level?
let me try that again. As I'm talking,
Gotcha.
college level English work, and have me do it in 7th grade. And I did well at
Makes
it.
a difference.
And so getting into like things like in high school, that's why when I got to high school, I'd already read Pride and Prejudice so many times because this teacher was like, "Oh wait, no, you're really good at this. Here's something that challenges you," and I freaking loved it. I have to ask one question before we actually go back to Bob's Burgers. For anybody who like wants to, like, if you have any answer to this, I don't know if you will, but if you wanted to like try and learn more on Shakespeare, because I didn't get enough of that, I feel I own so many, but I never really got more past like Julius Caesar and Romeo and Juliet. Like I never really got more than that to speak. Like I've tried to read the other ones, but I don't. Like, where do you go to learn more about
one of the best
that?
recorded performances of a Shakespearean play, and this is a little biased because it's one of my favorites. I would say, and I think you can rent it, or honestly, I think someone's put like the bootleg of it on YouTube. At some point in the late 2000s, early 2010s, David Tennant and Catherine Tate did a production of Much Ado About Nothing.
I've seen
I
clips
would
of
start there because that's a great interpretation of the show. It's a comedy, so you're not going to be weeding through a lot of like deceit and people dying and stuff. The two of them play off each other really well. I mean, you get it's similar to, and especially for you, it's similar to Pride and Prejudice. They hate each other, but they actually secretly love each other. Everyone's happy at the end of the day. But the two of them are so funny with it. And I would say like that is probably your best. Yeah, I would say that's the best place to start is find that recording. Just if you just want to, because I think Shakespeare needs to be performed. Just reading it and studying it, and this is me putting on my former English teacher hat. Just reading it isn't enough to understand it because you want to hear the rhythm of the words. You want to hear, I mean, especially from someone who understands what they're supposed to be saying. You can garner a lot of meaning just from hearing it performed, even if the words don't make a whole lot of sense. You get what they're trying to say.
Okay. I appreciate that because, like, and now that you say that, the other one, Othello, I think that was 11th grade. Remember, I couldn't remember whether I was like, wait a minute, I know Othello. I know Othello. I know that. So I think that was 11th grade. I just can't remember any books from that time. But I do want to say too, Steven and I have had those best parent moments, like at the end, or like say it. Oh, I got best parent of the week. Yeah, we have moments of that. But I'm like, all right, I'm doing really great at parenting. I win.
Then you had Louise and Jean. They're just like, how'd you get out of class?
You don't need to know.
They have their ways.
We have our ways. But then again, this is after the.
This is true. They do have the permapass now. There is that.
They have permapasses. How's the teacher not see all these people in the window?
Her back was to the window. She was purposefully, especially after Tay started yelling. But yeah, she wasn't paying attention. She had enough to focus on in that classroom.
That's fair. But you get what I'm saying. It's like, those are really like big windows. Some teachers just choose to. I think
that's sometimes the case. Sometimes you have to choose specifically what you're paying attention to.
Any other thoughts on Bob's?
Not really. It was a lot of just like you really need to just like all the parents were making bad decisions. That's the thesis statement of this episode.
Well, that was the connect. But that was the connection between.
It was paralleled stories.
Yes. So what did you rate this?
It did get an 8 for plot because ultimately, like I said, because the stories they did connect. It was like even though they were two very different adventures, they were teaching the same lesson of sometimes parents aren't always right.
Yes.
It got a 7 for character, mainly because you can't never read the book, and sometimes the principal thing's not more important than your safety. I get a 7 for personal, so this one got a 22.
That makes sense.
It's fine. It's still better than like when I say it's a 7s across the board. But it's fine.
I did a 7 for plot. Like I enjoy the plot, but I'm like you, like with the read the book.
Mm-hmm.
And just Bob having to be parented by his own child was an interesting choice.
Mm-hmm.
But I also didn't really enjoy a lot of it.
Yeah.
Like I enjoyed it, but like not enough to be over that. And then just character and personal are both 8.
Okay.
So this is only a 23 for me. So we're about the same on this
Yeah,
episode.
just one off.
But I think as readers, it's kind of hard, like, because we've both been readers since we were young.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to get behind, like, oh, just come up with something else. Don't read the book. Like, we would very much be like, I'm that mom. I would have sat down and be like, we can take this chapter by chapter. What do we need to do? We're going to read this book.
There's other methods.
Like, there's other methods. So this is what happens when there's readers in the room.
We focus on the B plot of the episode because that's what had to do with books. Thank you all for listening. Join us next time when we discuss Once Upon a Time, episode 301, The Heart of the Truest Believer. Don't forget to like, rate, and follow the podcast wherever you listen so you can be notified every time we publish a new episode. Follow us at OBDYK_pod on Instagram and TikTok. And if you'd like to join our book club, you can find the link with more details in our show notes.
This has been an episode of Okay, But Did You Know? A TV and media podcast. It was hosted by Katie and Lauren and edited by Katie.